Alright, hello gamers, today is Wednesday, July 24th, and we've got some new Guild Wars 2 news. They have released a new blog post called The Return of Raiding and Convergences in Janthir Wilds. Hello Tyrians! We're less than a month away from the launch of Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds. That comes out on August 20th, for those who don't know. And while there's plenty to be excited about for the August 20th release... Oh, okay, they say it. Oh, now I look stupid. Players can also look forward to the newest raid and convergence going live in our first major update in November. So those features will not be available right at the launch of the game. Sad face, they will be available approximately 3 months later. You will be able to explore a mysterious mountain region, and as you ascend the mountain, you'll face off against opponents who won't go down without a fight. Players will also get to choose how to encounter these fights in either a 50-player convergence event or a 10-player raid wing, our first new raid in 5 years. Our team is currently hard at work developing this new raid, so while we can't share all the details yet, we can provide an overview of what to expect and explain why we are reintroducing raids, along with some insight into what players can hope for in the future. Now, as I told my chat that I was about to cover this news, so one of them was like, Muck, I think your old theory was right about raids, and I was like, I hope not. And just to share what that was, this was a tweet that I did on May 29th of this year. And I said, imagine if ArenaNet is releasing a completely different feature and forgot it was the same age as raids when they said we're bringing you something you've been asking for 5 years. And now they see the raid community going insane for a new wing. And they're just like... So for those who weren't there in May, they announced like, hey, we're giving you guys something that you've been asking for 5 years. I think they were talking about housing, like player housing. And then the player community, the raid community went ballistic because they're like, we're finally getting a new raid. And they're just like, oh my God. So I post this just messing around, right? Bobby Stein, who works at ArenaNet, says, I so desperately want to crack a joke here, but I don't want to risk it ending up on Reddit or whatever. So I'll just, and he hides. And I was like, me who broadcasts a daily part of my life to thousands. Nah, Bobby, it's cool. This is a safe place. Go ahead. And then he called me a liar. So yeah, that all happened. We'll see if that was actually the case. So our team is currently hard at work developing this new raid, so while we can't share all the details yet, we can provide an overview of what to expect and explain why we are introducing raids along with insight into what players can hope for in the future. And then we got a picture here of some pretty mountains here, and it says, the return of raiding. In the past, raids were self-contained instances with their own stories, built for 10-player groups. Our goal with the upcoming raid is to allow players to experience the story in a way that works best for them. The raid will be integrated into the main storyline, and players who might be hesitant to join a raid group will be able to enjoy personal narrative. The 50-player version will be built as a convergence, similar in structure to those built in Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure. Those participating in the 10-player raid will find the story to be more hectic, with a focus on the formidable enemies they face rather than the NPCs involved in the narrative. While there will be some differences between the 50-player and 10-player versions, the team has recognized the importance of maintaining a sense of continuity between both experiences. We look forward to watching players discover and master these mechanics in each setting. Just a quick pause point there. One thing that I hope they do, there is something I've said before. The difference between a difficult raid and an easy raid, in my opinion, is there a mechanic where if Billy messes it up, it kills everyone versus it just killing Billy? That's the difference. On a easy raid, in my mind, if one player messes up, one player dies. On a hard raid, to me, if one player messes up, everyone dies. For example, when Dragon's End came out, when it first came out, and it was really overtuned, in my opinion, one of the things was there was a wisp mechanic. And I won't go into what it is because it doesn't matter for this conversation. But needless to say, this was a map-wide meta. And if any one of a couple of people messed up the wisp mechanic, the map failed. And everyone was punished for it. I really hope for Convergences, the 50-player version, they don't have anything like that. Unless there is like a challenge mode, then, yeah, go ham. Go nuts in the challenge mode. But for the normal mode Convergences, if you want the normies to do it, don't have a mechanic where if one person messes up, then everyone is punished for it. For raids, go for it. People going into raids, they know what they're getting into. Plus, I'll make guides for it. Y'all will be fine. With the introduction of our new raid encounter, some of you might be wondering if we will continue to create raids in the future. The answer is maybe. Raids require a significant amount of development resources, but only a small subset of players engage with the 10-player group instance content, which is part of the reason it has been 5 years since our last one. The new raid serves as a test to see how we could support raids moving forward. The history of raids is a lot of baggage. It was like they made Raid Wing, the first Raid Wing, and then they are like, oh, let's try something new, and then they made the next Raid Wing, and they're like, maybe we could get more players into this, and then they made the next Raid Wing. So when you go through them, there's very much like some jarring differences between each one because they kept changing the formula. They just didn't stick to one thing. So this is kind of that again. However, I like the fact that they're able to maximize development resources. Like, for example, in End of Dragons, the fight with Minister You Know Who is in the story, and it's also a strike mission, and it's also a challenge mode strike mission. So they got to reuse that platform and that boss for 3 different things. And that's a good use of development resources. So having this be a raid and also a convergence, so if one of them, and also the story. So if this is the story and the raid and the convergence, it's not going to hurt them as badly if they paid the developers X dollars per hour for X hundred hours to make it and then no one does raids or something. It's still going to be used for the other things. So that is a much nicer way of being able to justify it to your boss. Originally, we attempted to solve the cost problem with raids through strike missions, a new game mode designed to be a bridge between players and raids. This time, instead of trying to give players bridge content in the hopes it leads them to raids, we're just going to give them raid content from the start in the form those interested in it really want. Players who want a 10-player instance mechanics-heavy version can play that, and the players who prefer large-scale open-world experience with fewer barriers to entry can also play that content that way. Meanwhile, integrating raid content into the story lets us fit its development into our annual release schedule. We aim to extend story assets to support raids and gauge players' reactions to raids that have been integrated into the story. Sometime after the raid's release in November, its challenge mode will be available. Additionally, players participating in the 10-player raid can anticipate a legendary mode, offering a highly coveted purple title. So for those that don't know, and we got a little picture here, when the Saris CM fight came out, it was super overtuned. And after watching many of the best players in the world, not me, bash their heads into it for a while, ArenaNet was like, we overtuned this. All right, we're sorry about that. You guys are close to getting a kill, but we're gonna turn this down. And then a lot of the players, the really, really try-hard gamers were like, oh man, but we're so close to a kill. So what they decided to do, I think, was an excellent middle ground. There's the normal mode of the fight for Saris, the strike mission. And then there is the challenge mode that was like too tough. And they just called that legendary mode. And then they made the challenge mode that they intended to make from the start. So it is the first fight in the game that has 3 difficulties in that manner. Normal, challenge, and then challengey challenge. Challengist. So legendary mode is the last one. So basically they're saying from the get-go here, we're just going to spin the dial all the way to the right and see how hard you guys can get hit. So they're going to have normal mode and challenge mode and legendary mode. Virtuoso mode. Yes, virtuoso mode. The mode where just only the top DPS whatever in the game is invited. Yep. So yeah, and then we got a picture here of a mountain. This is probably like a boss fight arena or something. We don't know what that is yet. Convergences in Janthir Wilds. The Kodan cubs huddle closely around the village's claw, their eyes wide with awe and excitement as he begins to recount a harrowing tale, and the pungent stench of mildew emanates from the wet dungeon wall. Oh no, sorry, hang on. It's a story of bravery and strategy, in which a band of 50 fearless Tyrians embarked on a daring mission as they ascended the mountain. As the tale unfolds and you take up the challenge in this encounter, you will find a strong ally in your Warclaw mount, which will aid in this new adventure. Listen closely as the village claw weaves the narrative. Each encounter promises unexpected challenges and thrilling surprises. This is written really weird. During your encounters with these enemies, you might observe a noticeable shift in difficulty compared to what you experienced in Soto. We fine-tuned these bosses to present a more advanced challenge than in previous convergences, necessitating coordinated efforts from all party members to secure victory. So in the convergences in Soto, I would say like all of them except one are really easy. Like, I go in there and I'm just like, all right, group 1 and 2 go left, group 3 and 4 go right, group 5 and 6 stay in the middle, group 7 hit the Trebuckets. And then, everyone just, you guys go clockwise, you guys go counterclockwise, and then meet back here. And the Europeans don't know which way is counterclockwise, but the strategy still works, and it doesn't matter. So it's really not that bad. But then the final the guy that they added as an optional boss for Convergences in Soto is way more challenging, and the 50 people in your group need to be ready to do basically raid level mechanics, which is not that bad as long as they know what they're getting into. But if they get into there, they didn't expect it, they're going to die, and it's going to fail. So this is apparently going to be a step up from that. Completing convergences in GW2 Janthir Wilds will award players with essences that can be used to craft legendary gear. Yes, these essences will be compatible with the legendary obsidian armor available in Guild Wars 2 Soto, as well as the new legendary spear and legendary backpack, arriving in quarterly updates for Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds. Essences from Convergences will be renamed Rift Essences, with 3 rarities to streamline the rewards. We hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the post-launch content coming to Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds. We'll see you in Tyria. Pre-purchasing any edition of Guild Wars 2 Janthir Wilds before the expansion launches will grant you the Homesteader title, the Whispering Serpent's Pauldron skin, and a box with your choices of the Serpent's Wrath weapon skin. Visit our official store for details on the items included in the Standard, Deluxe, and Ultimate editions, and do not use the link in this article. Use the link in Muckluck's video that has a referral. Hashtag ad. That's it. It would be kind of funny if someday we hear from the devs, they're like, yeah, we weren't planning on doing this, and then everyone got excited. We were like, oh, crap. I don't know that that's actually true, though. I will say, I think it's awesome that they're making another one. Like, the raids... Okay, hang on. Let me get all my thoughts packaged together here. In this game, they've never increased the max level above 80. So that means every single raid that's ever been made, even the ones made many, many years ago, are still current content that people still do today, which is really cool. Like, in World of Warcraft, people aren't, if they want to go back and do the old raids, they just go solo them, because they out-leveled the raids. They could just go ping and then just kill Ragnaros and get a Sulfurous head, whatever. It's nothing. In this game, though, it's all still current content. Now, there has been power creep. There are some boss phases that, Gorseval, lots of people don't even know how to do the gliding phase, because if you do the current expected amount of damage per second, you just skip it entirely. So there is a power creep issues, but you do still have to put in some effort on those raids, which it's pretty crazy all these years later. So this is cool. This is you could say evergreen content. This is content this is going to be done by the community interested in it for a very long time, because it has been many years since the first Raid Wing came out, and people are still doing it today, getting, maybe they just want legendary armor, maybe they want the legendary ring coalescence, maybe they just want to learn the raids, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. It does make me a little worried that they're trying something new again, but it's been 5 years since the last one, so I don't blame them. I'm just saying that we're going to try something new and see how it goes. It feels like what we've heard between like almost every single Raid Wing so far. But I genuinely am, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, hope for the best though. I think it's a good use of development resources, finding a way to use some fights that are in the single player story. I say single player. You could do it with multi, but you know what I mean. Using some fights that are in the story, using the environment, the boss, and then doing it again for raid, but making it tougher, like they did with the End of Dragon Strike missions, and then doing it again as a convergence and making it even bigger scaling for 50 people. I think that's a good move. That is a good way to efficiently use the development resources. For that, because the big concern from the developers is like, okay, if our expert developer that we have to pay $100 an hour, if it takes him 1,000 hours to make this Raid Wing, and then no one likes it, we're out all that money, and we didn't have him available to make other projects during that time. Like, there is a cost with each of these things. So having not for games, but in tech support, having been on the development side of things like that, I totally understand this, and I think this is a clever way to do it. And I hope it works out. And for anyone who's ever been interested in raiding, I want to take this chance to say it's really not that bad. It has a stigma that it's like really insanely difficult. In my opinion, it's never been easier, because people like yours truly made get to the point guides that summarizes each boss in like 30 seconds. If you are interested in getting into it, I've got videos that make it really, really easy. Many of the raid bosses, like there's 25 raid bosses in the game currently. I say bosses, that includes like some of the events that count as a boss, but there's 25 bosses in the raid wings right now, and I would say half of them are easier than the hardest strike missions. Not talking about challenge modes. I'm talking about normal modes. So if you want to get in there and work on getting legendary rings, legendary armor, or just get a lot of money because you get a lot of gold, it's quite lucrative. I'll put a link to my raid guides down below. There's one that's just like a general one that explains how to get into the process, which I will show on the screen right here. This is the introduction to raiding, and then any boss. You click on any of these, and there's a video that's just like a minute to a couple of minutes long that tells you exactly what to do. And of course, that list will grow as they add new ones to the game. So there's a little self-plug, absolutely shameless. Hashtag ad. But yeah, with that, if you got any questions, problems, thoughts, concerns, put them in the comments section down below, and I will fight you there.